Welcome to Diakonia, a call to service. Diakonia is the Greek word for service and the root word for deacon. Each time we come together, we talk about our universal call to service. I'm Deacon Jim Norman, Vicar for Deacons with the Archdiocese of Chicago, blessed to serve at Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica. Delighted to have with me Deacon Dave Brinsick. Dave, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jim. I'm the Associate Director for the Diaconal Office, and I minister at Holy Guardian Angels Parish in Brookfield, LaGrange Park.
And each year, as Vicar for Deacons, we have deacons that are here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, about 480 active deacons. We also have deacons that are from the Archdiocese of Chicago that are working outside of the Archdiocese of Chicago. And each year they provide an annual report of the work that they're doing in their parishes and in their communities. I received a report from our guest today, Deacon Stewart Adams. Deacon, delighted to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And as I was reviewing his report and then had an opportunity to speak with him, I was just blown away by the work he's doing in the Archdiocese of Seattle, which we'll learn more about today. It's such a stark contrast and difference from what we're used to in the Archdiocese of Chicago, not only as deacons, but also as parishioners. So I think there's something here for everyone who's listening, and we wanted to get deeper insights into your ministry there in the Archdiocese of Seattle, specifically in Port Angeles, and your parish community is the Olympic Peninsula Catholic Parishes. You'll tell us more about that in just a minute, but we want to get to know you a little bit better. I think Dave has some initial questions for us to get to know you a bit better, Deacon Stewart.
So welcome, Stuart. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and, you have quite the journey to share, but initially a little bit about your background.
Well, originally, I came over from Scotland in 1976. My wife is from Oak Park, Illinois, and we had met actually in Peru when I was doing field work in Peru, and that's how I wound up in the United States. I wasn't Catholic at that time. My wife came from a strong Catholic family, and then but gradually, as I got more into during our marriage, I ended up joining the Catholic Church, and one of the deacons that helped me through RCIA thought, well, I should become a deacon. So I thought, this is crazy. I'd only been a Catholic for 2 weeks when he showed up at the door. But anyway, to cut a long story short, a few years later, I did approach my pastor in Immaculate Conception in Highland Park and said, I'd like to become a deacon. And then I kind of scrambled and got into I had about 2 weeks to get my application in for the formation program, and then I took it from there. And I've been a deacon for 24 years. I was, first of all, I was at Immaculate Conception in Highland Park, and then I moved over to Holy Cross in Deerfield, which is where I stayed until we moved out. My wife and I moved out here to Washington State, specifically to Port Angeles. We kind of followed my son. My son was working out here. He's married. Was working in Seattle, and then they were looking for a house, and they decided to move over to Port Angeles. He got a job at the local hospital. So I was ready to retire. My wife had been ripped from her job. We thought, hey, with time, why don't we just move out to the Pacific Northwest, which is what we did. So here I am in Port Angeles.
Stuart, and what was your professional career?
I was a lecturer in Hispanic studies, in Spanish at Northwestern University. I spent 37 years there as a lecturer.
Okay.
And that was it. That's my whole professional career. I'd originally, when I first came over to Chicago, when I was finishing my PhD, I was working for city colleges in what they call the Urban Skills Institute. So I was really teaching ESL to Hispanic immigrants and folks from Puerto Rico, folks from Mexico, and other parts of the Hispanic world. So that's what I did initially, and then I got the job at Northwestern and was there for 37 years.
Now, when you moved to Washington, you experienced a diocese and the geography very different. Just describe some of what you experienced there when you initially moved to Washington in terms of structure of the diocese, the nature of your role, and how's that evolved over the years?
Well, I think the thing that struck me initially, it was different. The church was in a state of flux. The local parish, because the pastor had been, I didn't realize this when I moved out here, but the pastor had major health concerns. So basically, I had to kind of help him initially, and it was run by a pastoral associate. I forget her title, but it was complicated, and things had to sort of settle down a lot after a while I think the big thing I remember was I had to wait for about a year to get my faculties for the formation program in Chicago to have the handshake, if I can use a computer analogy, with Seattle. But so there was a little bit of patience involved before I got my faculties. But then I got my faculties, and I was able to be in ministry out here.
Now, how big of an area is where you're at, and how large of an area does the parishes cover?
Well, I mean, where I am, I'm in the Olympic Peninsula, which is kind of it's off to the west of Seattle, and it's its own sort of unique area, really. Seattle is very similar, has many of the similar issues that I think Chicago does have. We have lots of parishes close together. We've had to combine parishes. We're actually in the process of going through that right now out here. And so you'll get parishes that are close together over in Seattle. Maybe like, for example, I'll give you an analogy. Back in Chicago, where I was in Immaculate Conception, they've combined with St. James. Well, we have that situation going on out here as well, except in the Olympic Peninsula, it is pretty remote. So we have Port Angeles, which is kind of in the center of the area. To the east, we have Port Townsend, and then to the west, we have St. Anne's and Fort. Well, in the central area, we have Port Townsend, and we have Port Angeles and Sequim. Then to the far east, we have Port Townsend, and then on the western end of that, we have St. Anne's and Clallam Bay. So that's about from Port Angeles to Port Townsend is 40 miles, and then from Port Angeles to Forks in the west is about 50 miles. So that's the area we're covering, and that's what the challenge that our new pastor, Father Jacob Maurer, has to deal with. He has two pastoral vicars that help him with all of that stuff. But it is a challenge, covering all of that, covering the sacraments, covering the masses, doing all the other things. So we're in the early stages of this process, but it's a big area to cover.
So are you assisting at Mass? What are some of the ministries that you're involved with there?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I just cover a lot of things. When I came out here, I had no idea what I was going to do. I ended up singing in the choir initially until I got my faculties. My wife loves to sing. She's a cantor in the church, but so what my main ministry, I think, right now is probably bereavement and funeral ministry. I arrange the funerals in the central area, specifically in Port Angeles. But I get to do a whole bunch of different things that are just as they come up, and lots of things spring up. I'll be called over to the hospital to visit patients over in the hospital, that kind of thing. I've become a spiritual advisor to some of our parishioners. I do weddings. I mean, I'm the kind of Spanish guy, I guess. You can't tell that from my accent, but that's I work a lot with the Spanish folks, and because of my Spanish, I'm able to. I will preach once a month out at Port Townsend for the Spanish community, and I assist at the Spanish Mass and Sequim in the central area. So it's just I get to do lots of interesting things,
Can you tell us a little bit about the diversity of the area? So tell us a little bit about the parishioners, their diversity, income levels, kind of work that's done in that area.
Well, that's a really good question because we have people that are long time members of this community. They were born here, they grew up here, they've lived here all their lives. It's a nice area to retire to. So we have an influx of people from Southern California, for example, from the Midwest, from all over the United States, and from all walks of life. So we have a lot of professional people that have moved out here and retired out here. One of my fellow deacons, Deacon Richard Lebrecq, he came from Houston, and Deacon Richard was involved, and he's an engineer, was involved with NASA, and was involved with the moonshot. So it's kind of
Okay.
the kind of caliber of people we have out here. It's very interesting. But what's in terms of diversity, my own little parish here in Port Angeles, we have a large Filipino community, which we are very involved. We have different Spanish communities. We have one in Sequim, and then one out in Port Townsend. And if we move to the far west of the area in Forks, they have a very large Guatemalan community with people whose first language is not Spanish but Mam. So those are some of the we've got other representations there too, but those are the main ones I would think. There's the Filipino, Spanish, and other other ethnicities as well.
Okay. And you said a retirement community, agricultural community? I'm just trying to get a sense in that area. You're there on the waterways, it seems.
Well, what was what was big out here for a while was the logging industry. It was an important part of this particular part of Washington State. So we have it just closed down, but we had a mill it's been opened and closed several times, depending on the state of the logging industry. Then the whole thing with the spotted owl really put paid to that, because a lot of difficulty for the folks that had grown up here, because that was their main industry. But the tourism is important. We also have the Coast Guard station is out here in Port Angeles. We have a Coast Guard station, which is a major part of the community. We have lots of members of the Coast Guard come to church and their families. So we have those guys out here. The healthcare is important. The largest employer in Port Angeles is probably the Olympic Medical Center, OMC. So that's kind of gives you a general idea of the folks we have, of what our makeup is here. It's interesting in terms of our priests, though. We have, when I first came here, we had our priest was a local boy, Father Rob. He was from Port Angeles, but his pastoral vicar was from the Philippines, Father Pestaño. And then when Father Rob retired, we got Father Randy Guarino, also from the Philippines, who was our priest administrator. He wasn't our pastor, but his title was priest administrator. And then now we have Father Jacob, who actually did his graduate work at Mundelein. We've got Father Ed White, who did work was connected to Mundelein also, and from Barrington. And then we have Father Naresh Gali, who is from India. So we have a very very diverse parish, I think, very diverse community actually, and both in the clergy and in the local folks.
I was going to ask, if you describe your typical weekend, your movements over that geography, what does it look like? Maybe last weekend, this weekend coming up. So when do you start? Where do you go? What's happening? Just give us a sense and a feel for that.
Okay, well, this is, I've tried to work, my pastor is great. He allows me to do what I want to do, basically. I'm a senior deacon. I can basically do what I want to do. But it's like so a typical weekend, the way I've tried to structure my month, let's say, is my first weekend, because we've got all these parishes. My first weekend, I'll schedule myself for Mass, the assist at Mass, the first weekend. Second weekend, I preach. So I'll do 2 Masses on the second weekend. The third week, that's in Port Angeles, okay, which is, by the way, I live 5 minutes from the church. I can walk around the block in my church, and the church is there. Okay, so it's not exactly a long commute when I'm local. Okay, but I decided I was really the whole Partners in the Gospel, this combination of grouping of parishes. I decided we really need to kind of I need to walk the walk, so to speak, not just talk the talk. So I wanted to be part of the other parishes as well, and to be a presence there. So anyway, the third weekend I will do the 8:30 Mass in Port Angeles. Then I hop in the car and drive 15 miles over to down Highway 101 to St. Joseph's in Squim, and I'll assist at the Spanish Mass down there. My pastor, by the way, has to do the same thing. So that's the third weekend. The fourth weekend, I go out to Port Townsend, and I go there. I will preach in Spanish at the 8:30 Mass, and preach in English at the 11 o'clock Mass. So I was just out there this past weekend. It was being Corpus Christi. It was lovely. We had a procession and all that good stuff. So that's kind of how I've structured my weekend.
Okay. And so in a month, you've been at each parish community, English and Spanish, in one form or another.
Yeah, that's right. The one thing I haven't been out to Forks as part of that rotation, although I have gone out there several times to be involved or to assist with Hispanic weddings I've done out there. Okay, actually, the Forks is fascinating with the Guatemalan community because I was working with indigenous people in Peru. I was working with Quechua speakers in Peru. So for me to be able to be out there and have indigenous folks and work with them a little bit, it's great. So I'm hoping I can do some more of that.
Okay.
Moving forward.
I was going to ask just if you could share with us, for deacons and for faithful in general, how do you keep yourself spiritually grounded and energized to do the work that you're doing?
Well, I'm going to say I think the work itself energizes me. I mean that's a kind of a glib answer. In terms of, but we have a men's prayer group on a Monday morning that meets. It's kind of based on the Cursillo model. It started many years ago. But we go around. We talk about what are your spiritual aids. Is one of the questions we ask, and we go through rosaries, liturgy of the hours, which of course I do. But I think the group itself is a major way of keeping me grounded. They're very, very faithful guys. It's great being with them. I also meet on a Tuesday, and I love this. We have been my small group that in formation. It was Deacon Ed Melton, Deacon Bob Oxner, and it used to be Deacon Paul Schmidt, but Deacon Paul passed away a couple of years ago. But we started saying the office together as a group. We would meet at Holy Cross every Thursday. We've kept that group going, 24 years.
Wow.
We're all split up. Deacon Ed he's an extern in South Carolina. I'm out here, but Deacon Bob is still back in Chicago. We've picked up the faith formation director at Holy Cross, John Powen, and I've got one of the guys that I'm mentoring So another thing I do, I've got a mentee who's going through the formation program out here. But we get together on a Tuesday morning via Zoom to say the office together, which is really kind of fun. And with Deacon Ed, we never know quite where he's going to be. He just got back from Africa. From a trip along the west coast of Africa, and he's been various places. We will try to check in so we can do this together. So, a given week, a given Tuesday, we can be all over. We're all over the map anyway, but he might be even further afield. But it's great. These guys have always just really been my strength, and it's something for my fellow deacons. You don't want to be isolated. Get together with other guys. I mean, we get together for the convocation and all of that. It's a big group, but try to get together with a small group where you can share and just that's been a tremendous blessing to me to do that.
Now, did you have was it hard to adjust moving from Chicago to the Washington area?
A little. I mean, yes and no. First of all, this is absolutely a gorgeous area. It's like it's kind of heaven on earth. I mean, that's kind of that sounds very glib, but it is. It's beautiful out here. The temperature's moderate. I mean, you guys are baking in the heat back in Chicago right now. Our temperature, let me see, is 62 and sunny. It's perfect. Okay, so yes, it does get a little bit rainy in the wintertime, but it's not really bad. So, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be out here. But the adjustments, once I got my faculties, I slid right in. I mean, of course, we had COVID in the middle of that as well, and that was interesting. We'd be doing masses and recording them for the folks so they could watch it at home. We did that. But no, I don't think the priests have been great. I've got two other deacons out here, and one of the things I did when I got out here is that we need to get together. I followed the old Chicago model I had, so we were getting together. We haven't been able to do that lately so much, but we started off that way. But we're still very connected. So we're not as deacons, we're not isolated. And Father wants to get together with us, and we'll try to get together the second Thursday of the month. So yeah, it's some of the differences I did notice out here. It's quite traditional. I mean, there are a lot of the traditional Catholicism, which is a convert. Some of that stuff I hadn't even seen before, But here I was, and people are traditional. It runs the gamut, we've got conservatives to liberals, but in the church, but in our churches out here. But I would say it's got a nice kind of traditional bent to it, which I enjoy a lot, actually. But that's who we are. But in terms of things I did notice, in terms of funerals, because I'm involved a lot in funerals, is the number of the funerals I do. That most of the funerals we do here are with cremations. Okay. Very few caskets out here. So that's a little bit different,
Is there a reason or rationale why? I mean, can you point to some reasons why that might be the case there? I think we're beginning to see more cremations here than maybe 10, 20 years ago, but it sounds like you're at even a higher level there.
It might be economics. One of the things I have noticed, though, if we do have a family that wants has a loved one cremated, it's easier to schedule a funeral. It can be very difficult. I think it's quite complicated, given that in Chicago you've lots and lots of funeral homes you can use. Here it's more limited, and I think that makes it difficult. It was very difficult over the winter time because our priests were away. We had a death in the community, and trying to schedule that, and then you have to schedule it with the cemetery as well, and they can't always do it. So when you have ashes, when you have cremains, it makes it easier to you have a little bit more leeway to set all of that stuff up.
You had spoken to us about kind of your monthly, looking at a month and your schedules for Saturday and Sunday. What about daily masses? Given that your 4 parish communities, are daily masses offered at each, or none, or does it move through in terms of your priests?
That's one of the challenges, right. We're going to do a slight switch now, so we'll have daily masses at Squim and on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then that's St. Joseph's. And then at Queen of Angels, we'll have them on Thursday and Friday. Okay, out at Forks and the two bookends, Forks and Port Townsend, they have one of the vicars is out there, so they can run that and take care of those communities. So that's how it works. So we do have daily masses. We also have. I didn't mention we have a school. I'm very involved with the school. I'm very present to the kids. They have the kids mass on a Friday morning, and I assist at that. And every 2 weeks, the pastoral vicars come in. So we'll have the 3 priests and me for the school mass on Friday mornings.
Tell us a little bit more about the school. How many students in total?
I think I don't know the exact number. It's about 200.
About 200. And
So it's very healthy. Yeah.
Good.
I was going to ask if all the parishes kind of are feeding in to support that school, either with children or financially, perhaps.
The central area, yes. I don't know about the far. I don't know about the far end.
Okay.
Yeah, but certainly in the central area, the school is supported, very much supported. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
As you're doing, I wanted to, you mentioned a couple of times, and you found an importance in connection, I guess, as we prepare to close. And you mentioned you're doing some spiritual direction. You said connection has been really important to you. Your connection on Monday with the men's group, on Tuesday, for the last 24 years with a group of deacons, just to go through the liturgy of the hours, the morning prayer. Kind of regardless to where any of you are, trying to stay connected in that way. If you were sitting and had an opportunity for 2-3 minutes spiritual direction with our listeners and our audience here, kind of building those spiritual muscles, growing closer in your walk with Jesus, I'm sure you'd say connection with others is important. What else is important, Deacon Stewart, from your perspective?
I think, oh gosh, meeting people where they're at, I think is something that and that's something I think I got from formation, because we have some folks that are interested in the church, or maybe wanting to come into the church, don't know a whole lot about the church. So you have all of that, and people within our church who think they know everything and don't. It's kind of it's a little, that's one of the challenges, but just the community itself. I think we're very good, at least out here. After Mass, we have a social. People will run, hospitality. That was amazing. It's amazing. I must have gained about 40 pounds out of here because they do like to eat, and they like to put the food together. So yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
Okay.
And we have a very strong Knights of Columbus, by the way, and their breakfast once a month is the best in town. There's no question about that.
okay.
So that's a once a month breakfast that they do?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
It's amazing. The guys put that together. I haven't joined the Knights, but they've been at me to join, so I'm giving that some serious consideration.
Okay. I guess let's maybe close this way. Clearly, our listeners and the audience, and we can feel and sense the great joy and passion you have for your ministry. What have been the blessings of your diaconal ministry over the years as you reflect back? I could see it in the write-up that you provided, but if you'd say, what have been the blessings, the things that you're grateful for about your ministry?
I'm just grateful of having had the chance to do that, to meet so many people from different walks of life, to be with them in their joys, which I've certainly had that opportunity to do, but to meet with them in their challenges. That's a tremendous, when you go into a hospital room and somebody's, they want to talk to somebody that represents the church, and you're there for them for that. I think this is just an example that will stick in my mind. Both ends of that. I was given the opportunity to do the invocation of the change of command in the Coast Guard. So I went out and put on my Alban Chicago. I had my Chicago stole on, and when my Alban went out to the Coast Guard station and did the invocation for that. The other end of the scale, to give you an example of things that can happen to you in the small community. I got a phone call about 6:00 in the morning, and it was from a member of the Port Angeles Police Department, and it was his dad was one of the ushers of the church, and because of that, he said he called me up that one of our parishioners, her husband had passed away in the middle of the night. and they hadn't picked up the body yet, and they wanted a chaplain to go over there. The police chaplain, I went over and I was sat with them while we waited for the funeral people to come and pick up the body. That was a very powerful moment for me, to do that. So you get these experiences. I didn't think when I was starting out in the diaconate, how am I going to handle all of that?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess God has put me in. I'm able to do it, and it's not me. I know it's God that's behind all of this. So
Right.
yeah.
Maybe that's a great place to end. And we started our time talking about this show and being a call to service, a universal call to service, not only for deacons but to all the faithful. And spending our time with you, it's about connectivity, humility, openness,
Love
prayer,
to serve.
prayer, passion, and love to serve.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do and are doing there in the Diocese of Seattle. Thank you for your time at the Archdiocese of Chicago. You're still one of ours on loan.
Oh yeah, I'm not planning on changing. I still I like to get the emails from you guys. So yeah, still a Chicago deacon. Will always be a Chicago deacon.
Okay.
It was a pleasure being with you today. God bless you and your ministry.
God bless you.
Likewise, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
For to sit at my right hand or at my left,